our mobility, our bones, our muscles, all of this is being impacted by erratic changes in hormones. When we get to early perimenopause, and that's usually early 40s, the thing about perimenopause, and that's why it is so tricky, I always say it's like a moving target. There's no one day where it announces itself, and there's no definitive test. And when I think about perimenopause and how to diagnose it, it's really based on a clinical diagnosis of symptoms. So kind of like when we go through our first puberty. If a girl, she's 11 years old, she's starting to have a cycle, we don't need a test to determine that she's in puberty at that point, right? We know. So if a woman is in her early to mid 40s or maybe even 39 years old, and she is experiencing cyclical symptoms, she's having menstrual cycle changes, and like she's not feeling like herself, most likely it is perimenopause. There's a myth that this zone of chaos is temporary, but a lot of the silent shifts that are happening are not. The bone loss, that's not temporary. The muscle loss isn't temporary. The brain remodeling, that's not necessarily temporary either. We have to listen to our body. We got to attune to the signals of our body and address them.
What can they do to address those issues?
So the first step is,
if you haven't done so already, go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. It's a little red button. You punch that, and it's going to notify you every time we put out a new episode that can help you improve your bone health. And then also, if you haven't done so already, head over to bonecoach.com, sign up for the free 7-day osteoporosis kickstart. That's going to walk you through everything you need to be doing right now to get on the path to improvement and stronger bones. After you do those two things, go ahead and press play on this episode, and I'll see you inside. Welcome to this episode of the BoneCoach Show. Joining us today to explore perimenopause, hormones, and non-negotiable strategies to future-proof your health is Dr. Mariza Snyder. Dr. Mariza Snyder is a powerhouse advocate for midlife women, leveraging 17 plus years as a practitioner, author, and speaker to spark a massive movement for women in perimenopause and beyond. With her top-rated Energized with Dr. Mariza podcast with 13 million downloads, and a passionate social media audience of over 400,000 and 8 million monthly views, she's a trusted guide offering science-backed solutions for perimenopause and metabolic health. Her upcoming book, The Perimenopause Revolution with Hay House, is the ultimate resource for women ready to take charge of their health and embrace perimenopause with resilience and confidence. Check out her website, drmariza.com, for solutions to thrive. Dr. Mariza, welcome back to the show.
thanks so much for having me. It's so good to be here.
I know, it's good to see you again too. So we're going to talk about your book that's coming out, which is going to change so many people's lives and is changing so many people's lives. Let's start with a few important questions. So what has been your experience or your perimenopause experience, and how has your journey inspired you to advocate for women in midlife?
I will tell you that at 43 years old, I was coming out of postpartum, still breastfeeding my son. And I'll tell you, Kevin, I was feeling good. I was feeling really good. And I thought, maybe I get to shove this thing called perimenopause back a bit. It just kind of wasn't on my radar. I think I was recovering from the postpartum journey and the sleep issues, the low hormones, all the things that come as an early parent. And I remember I was training 2 times a day at this point. Like I was lifting weights twice a day. I was walking every day. My blood sugar looked amazing. My biomarkers looked great. I felt good. Like I was finally sleeping through the night with my son. And I was like, I'm crushing life right now. This lasted 5 months. And then all of a sudden I went from high energy, high mental capacity, executive function. I mean, honestly, taking names, kicking butt, taking names. I was all the things. And then all of a sudden my energy tanked. I started having pretty severe mood swings. My sleep started becoming more disrupted. And it felt like I wasn't able to handle the 100 tabs that I was typically used to handling. Things that felt effortless felt like I had to really over effort. And I started to wonder what is going on. Initially, I thought it had to be my thyroid. I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. That felt like the easy culprit to blame because so often perimenopause and low thyroid function, they look really similar. They have the similar aspects in terms of the brain fog and the low energy and all that kind of stuff, kind of weight resistance that was happening a little bit. And so I went down that rabbit hole, and it took me about 6 months to finally identify that what I was experiencing was actually perimenopause. And what really got me was in that fall, this was in the spring when I started experiencing these symptoms. That fall, I started experiencing this like deep sense of dread with bouts of rage. And when I started looking at my cycle, and it was like day 23 every single month, like clockwork, like day 22, things were fine. Day 23, everything hit the fan. And I was having these bouts of rage. This is when I knew I was like, oh, this is perimenopause. And I thought to myself, like, I had been taking care of women for 17, 15 years at the time, and women in midlife, women in perimenopause and menopause. And if I am not able to really recognize what's going on with me, man, no wonder so many women feel like they're in the dark when it comes to the profound changes that are happening across the body during this transition.
So many things just came to mind as you were walking through that. But I do want to know just what is happening
Yeah.
with women's hormones in perimenopause, and how does that impact a woman's mental and physical well-being?
Great question. This is probably the question I get the most, particularly from women, wondering, is this even perimenopause, these symptoms that I'm experiencing? So I want to just back us up really quickly because I think, we all know menopause is having a moment. And this is probably a big part of, your demographic when it comes to bone health as well. And we all know that menopause is that defining day where we haven't had a period for 12 months. But what we didn't understand was that there were many, many years leading to that moment where hormones were radically shifting and ultimately declining. And for so long, we just pretended like these hormones were bikini medicine hormones, that the only thing that these were affecting were between the bikini lines, particularly our ovaries, our uterus, our reproductive system, our menstrual cycle. We now know it's very clear that these hormones are modulating bone remodeling. They are helping with muscle protein synthesis. They are impacting our brain, our gut microbiome, our immune system, our metabolism, our blood sugar regulation. And so, as these hormones that our body has been used to rhythmically, consistently cycling every single day for decades, all of a sudden they become erratic and they start to shift and decline. The body is trying to figure out what to do, particularly the brain. So, 80% of the symptoms that women report in perimenopause are going to be brain related. And that's because the brain is reliant on these neurohormones. They're really neuron steroidal hormones in a lot of ways. And this is why we call perimenopause a neuroendocrine transition. As the brain is starved of estrogen and progesterone, it starts to experience shifts in the hippocampus, the amygdala, the limbic system, and even the prefrontal cortex. And so women will notice, one, their sleep becomes disrupted. They will notice their stress response system becomes less tolerant. All of a sudden, they just don't have the same bandwidth they used to, or they feel more irritable. They will also notice a decline in mental function, cognitive function, like their memory. Yeah, I have friends of mine who will be like, I need that thing. Grab that thing right there. And it's their water bottle. Like they're looking right at it and they can't remember. I have so many friends who like charge into a room and don't even know why they got there after they walked in, whether it's the kitchen or the living room. And there's nothing more frustrating than intentionally walking into somewhere. And then once you get there, you have no idea why you arrived. And so this is because that we see a decline in energy metabolism up to 25% when we're going through this perimenopause neuroendocrine transition. But not only that, we see weight resistance. Women will tell you, and I'm sure you've heard this as well, that I've been doing the same things for the last 10, 20 years, and it's worked until now. I haven't changed what I'm eating. I haven't changed the way I'm working out. And yet I'm not seeing the same response. I'm not seeing the same benefits. And so we know that as estrogen is declining, even progesterone is in control of water retention and inflammation. Estrogen is very sensitive to insulin sensitivity, to body composition changes, particularly fat changes. And so as estrogen begins to fall, we see more insulin resistance. We see more, we call that menopausal belly fat. And we see a redistribution of body composition. And this can feel very destabilizing for women. And so I just want women to know that it is a whole body transition that we're going through, but there's a lot that we can do about it.
So if you were to define perimenopause and maybe the stages of perimenopause, how would you define that?
Yes, absolutely. So first I would define late reproductive years. So that's anywhere between 35 and 40 years old. And we always hear about those, it used to be called geriatric pregnancies or late, like kind of later pregnancies. And that's because we know that there's only so many eggs left by the time we're in our mid to late 30s. Because there's only so many eggs left and the body knows it, including the ovaries and the brain, there becomes a miscommunication there. And as a result, we see progesterone beginning to decline. That's the first hormone that begins to decline. And what's important to note is that in order for us to make progesterone, we need to ovulate. I would say ovulation is the main event. And in our mid to late 30s, we start to have anovulatory cycles, meaning cycles where we don't ovulate. And as a result, we don't make progesterone. And so in those first late reproductive stage into early perimenopause, women will notice cyclical changes. So in the luteal phase of their cycle, closer to their period, their PMS symptoms may be exacerbated. Their menstrual cycle is shifting. Maybe it's decreasing in the number of days. They may notice spotting. So again, menstrual cycle changes, brain-related changes in terms of irritability, low stress tolerance, brain fog, lower mental energy, mood swings, particularly around your period, and then less workout recovery. We're noticing that we're just not recovering the way that we used to. And that has a lot to do with, our tendons, our ligaments, our mobility, our bones, our muscles. All of this is being impacted by, again, erratic changes in hormones. When we get to early perimenopause, and that's usually early 40s, maybe late 30s, but often early 40s, majority of my women will come to me at 43, 42 years old and say, I don't feel like myself anymore. This is where we start to really notice an exacerbation of symptoms around the brain and mental health. Women will notice more anxiety, more depression. This is where they'll start to notice that the weight gain is sticking and they can't seem to get rid of it. Women will also notice, again, more menstrual cycle changes. Some women will start having hot flashes and night sweats. What defines late perimenopause, and this is what we always thought perimenopause was, and we kind of ignored women in the early stages of perimenopause because they were still cycling. Late perimenopause is defined by you're skipping a period more than 60 days. At this point, you're 1 to 4 years out from menopause. But this is really where symptoms begin to get more intense. This is where we notice low libido, vaginal dryness, maybe UTIs, general urinary symptoms of menopause. This is where women will notice more muscle loss, notice more resistance to their weight, and hot flashes, night sweats, sleep issues, what I call crime scene periods, Kevin, where you won't have a cycle for a couple of months and then, oh my goodness, it's a hot mess of a situation. And so this is where I feel like women are really in the eye of the storm in that late perimenopause, because now they're skipping periods for prolonged periods and their body is really losing estrogen at an alarming rate.
Understood. You mentioned something there about women in their late 30s. For women in their late 30s, that haven't yet had children, that want to have children, are there any considerations as it relates to perimenopause for them there?
That's a great question. You're talking about reproductive longevity. So a lot of the lifestyle strategies that we think about come into play here. I had my son when I was 41 years old. At 38 was when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And I remember the reason why I was running a full gamut of tests that year was that I wanted to start trying literally at 38 years old. When I got that diagnosis of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, I took a whole year off and I cleaned up my gut. I got my gut really healthy. I got my antibodies down. I really doubled down on lifestyle strategies and things that would really optimize my reproductive longevity. When we think about optimizing reproductive longevity, we think about not only the gut microbiome, but also mitochondrial capacity. When we think about the energy it requires to prep for a potential egg being released every single month, or even a baby to be conceived, your body is prepping for that. And it's where we make the most mitochondria is in the ovaries. And so every month it is a very metabolically driven event. And that's why we see things when we see insulin resistance, we see an increase in polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's because reproduction is such a metabolically driven event, such a mitochondrially metabolically driven event, that when we have metabolic dysfunction, our reproductive system is one of the biggest systems to be affected. So 1 in 5 women are struggling with polycystic ovarian syndrome today. We have a metabolic crisis on our hands as well. So my recommendation always is, one, what are we doing to boost your mitochondrial function? Whether it's cofactors and supplementation, like things like urolithin A or CoQ10, or even maybe things like, supplements like MitoQ, that there's a lot of supplements out there that are specifically focused on mitochondrial optimization, but also hormetic stressors like being in the sauna, being outside, moving your body, walking after meals, resistance training, and then also making sure that you kind of do a little gentle detox so that you're kind of clearing out the cells. So those are the things that I would be thinking about when it comes to reproductive longevity. Most of it is lifestyle medicine, but also if progesterone is declining in you, and you can run labs and take a look at that, I would recommend cycling progesterone in the second half of your cycle. For me, just full disclosure, I got pregnant at 40 and I lost that baby. And most likely it was because my progesterone levels, it could have been genetics. We don't really know. You never know why a miscarriage happens. But especially when you're trying to get pregnant in your late 30s and your 40s, lower levels of progesterone can be a reason. It can be one of the root cause factors for miscarriages. And so after that loss, I got on oral micronized progesterone. I got on 100 milligrams. I cycled it and I got pregnant 3 months later. And then I stayed on that oral micronized progesterone until I was 15 weeks pregnant. So basically into my second trimester. So that would be another thing that I would be considering. One, run your labs, look at your hormones, make sure that you're looking good. You're looking at luteinizing hormone, follicular stimulating hormone, estradiol, AMA, progesterone. You just want to be looking at all these levels to see what's going on. But that's typically a medical intervention that I'll bring in is oral micronized progesterone.
That was fantastic. Thanks so much. So ladies that are listening right now, if you're listening and you have, your daughter or your daughter-in-law or someone like that, and you think this applies to them, share this episode with them, because what Dr. Mariza just shared there is really helpful. So how would someone know how would a woman know she's in perimenopause? They can test for that? Hey, it's Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. I want to take one more minute to talk about if you are somebody who was newly diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, and you're at a point where you're stressed, you're worried, you're overwhelmed, you have no idea where to start or how to get started getting confident in your plan. I want to tell you about the Stronger Bone Solution Program. Over 5,000 people have come through the Stronger Bone Solution Program, and it walks you through the exact process you need to fill in the missing pieces, uncover critical things in your plan that you may not be aware of, and help you make modifications, adjustments, and tweaks to get you to the place where you're building stronger bones. I want you to get confident in your plan so that you can focus on living life and enjoying the life that you deserve with the people you love most. So if that's where you want to be, head over to bonecoach.com/apply and apply for our Stronger Bone Solution Program right now. I'm Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. I want to see you inside this program. I want to help you get on the path to improvement and stronger bones. Hope to see you inside very soon. Let's get back to the episode.
No, they cannot. Yeah, the thing about perimenopause, and that's why it is so tricky. I always say it's kind of like a moving target, is that there's no one day where it announces itself. Kevin, that would be amazing. I wish my body was like, girl, we're in perimenopause, saddle up. Then there's no definitive test. And so when I think about perimenopause and how to diagnose it, it's really based on a clinical diagnosis of symptoms. So kind of like when we go through our first puberty, if a girl, she's 11 years old, she's starting to have a cycle, we don't need a test to determine that she's in puberty at that point, right? We know. So same kind of situation for second puberty. So if a woman is in her early to mid 40s or maybe even 39 years old, and she is experiencing cyclical symptoms, she's having menstrual cycle changes, and she's not feeling like herself, most likely it is perimenopause. Could it be a yes and? Could we also be struggling with insulin resistance or burnout or a deregulated stress response system, or even maybe an autoimmune condition? Absolutely. It can be a yes and. But often if we are in our late 30s, early 40s, and we are having symptoms and our menstrual cycle is changing, that is an indicator that you're also stepping into perimenopause.
Understood. And so I know some of the bigger concerns around perimenopause or during perimenopause would be weight gain, hormone fluctuations, insulin resistance, as you mentioned. What are any other recommendations that you have for optimizing whole body health and body composition changes during that time?
Yeah, let's focus on metabolism, because I will say that 1 in 3 women will die of a mostly preventable heart attack or stroke, and more women than men die of heart disease. Also, more women than men will have an osteoporotic fracture, and 67% of dementia patients are women. A lot of these are metabolic in nature. And so a big part of my book, the through line of the Perimenopause Revolution, is how do we shore up your metabolic health, your cardiometabolic health? And as a side benefit, get rid of some of that belly fat, because I would love to do both. It would be a yes and for me. So the first step is we got to figure out what's going on with your blood sugar. So get the labs ran, look at the full metabolic panel, look at a full lipid panel, including ApoB and lipoprotein little a, look at fasting insulin, fasting glucose, hemoglobin A1C, even look at your highly sensitive CRP as well. That is an inflammation marker. I want to be looking at all of these markers. And these markers alone, Kevin, can also tell me if a woman's in perimenopause or not, especially if I have a timeline of her labs. If I've been working with a patient in her 30s into her 40s, and all of a sudden I start to see these markers move in an unfavorable direction, I'm going to guess that perimenopause and erratic declining hormones are part of the scenario. So the first thing I want to understand is what's going on with her blood sugar, because that is a direct connection to her overall metabolic health. It's one of the best proxies we have of knowing what's going on with your cellular energy. But also, we know that insulin resistance is the driver of weight resistance. It's the driver of weight gain. And so I want to also know what's her fasting insulin. Ideally, I want it under a 5. So I want to build your life around balancing your blood sugar, optimizing your blood sugar. That starts with meals. So I always recommend a savory breakfast, a breakfast that's focused on protein, fiber, so micronutrient rich foods, antioxidant rich foods, fermented foods, and healthy fats, things like omega rich fats, whether that's a smoothie or that's leftovers from the night before, or that is, a big veggie scramble with, some chicken. Like that breakfast is going to set the tone for the rest of your day. That's how you're breaking your fast. That's how you're building your muscle. That's how you're setting the tone for your blood sugar. And I really want you to be thinking about every meal. Earlier this weekend, we were going to a pumpkin patch outside of our area. And I didn't pack enough water. And we have a water purification system in our house. I have a ton of big water bottles. My son sucks down water like it's his job. And so I had packed a 36 ounce water container for him. We are 2 hours into this trip. I'm down to like 10 ounces. I'm this kid. And I don't know, I wasn't prepared. So we had to run into a grocery store, and I'm not going to call it the grocery store, but it was a big grocery store. And mind you, this isn't a food desert. We're not in an area where we're in a food desert. This is a massive store. And I'm looking for water. Have you ever been to a grocery store where you don't know the landscape? And so I am going aisle after aisle after aisle, and I'm praying that there's glass water, like maybe like mountain spring water. Because ideally, I would love to not use plastic. It's the reason why I pack these massive, mega stainless steel containers when I go to anywhere with my family. So as I'm going down aisle after aisle after aisle, and I'm looking down and looking down, it is just rows of thousands of ultra processed food items. And by the 8th aisle, I'll be honest with you, and I know that this exists. I've been seeing this for decades. I felt this deep sense of anxiety and dread. And I thought, there are moms in this store right now who are just trying to feed their family. And even the perimeter is like frightening. I always say, shop the perimeter of the store, not this store. Don't shop the perimeter of this store. Just walk your butt out of this store is what I was going to tell people. Like, stop shopping here. And by the time I got to the water, and mind you, I had to go all the way down this water aisle, because before I even got to the water, gosh forbid water be the first thing you see. It is Powerades, and it is, sports drinks. It's orange and green and blue and every color of the rainbow just to get down to the water. And finally, I found one company that was selling glass water, and that was it. So I bought 2 of those. But I just walked out of there thinking, man, all of the advertisement, all the marketing, gluten-free, all the things, whatever it's promoting and touting, I was like, this food's killing us. And so this is a big through line of the book, is how do we build metabolically healthy meals that balance your blood sugar, protect your gut microbiome, and help you to build muscle. This is a big part of how we protect our cardiometabolic health. And you'll see, this is such a major aspect of the book, including so many recipes so that you are set up to win. Because navigating that store, my gosh, is a family's nightmare. It's just, there was nothing there to eat except for like being in the vegetable aisle or the fruit aisle. And it broke my heart, like how deceptive being at a grocery store can be. So that's a big part of it. Next, it's movement. Probably if there's something you walk away from this conversation today, is that we need to build our life around movement, not build movement around our life. I want you to start thinking about, how do we punctuate our days with exercise snacks, with walking after meals, especially your biggest meals, with, being in the gym. Even 20 minutes of quality strength training can move the needle in a big way with progressive overload. We need to be protecting our bones. We need to protect our muscle. We need to build them like our life depends on it, because it does. And so I do over 200 jump squats every single day. I'm jump squatting through after meals. I'm jump squatting between meetings. When I fill up my son's bathtub at night, I am doing 60 jump squats. Like, how do we build meaningful movement that just feels good to our body, but also protects our metabolism, our muscle, and our bones, and also protects our brain? The easiest way to mitigate symptoms is with movement. So those are going to be the two biggest through lines of this book, because this is what's going to future-proof your health.
Talking about the brain, let's talk about mental health in perimenopause. And how would a woman going through perimenopause experiences maybe mental health challenges, and what can they do to address those issues? Hey, it's Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Bone Coach Show. If you're finding it helpful, please leave a positive rating and review. Hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast or the channel. That lets us help more people and reach and serve more people. And it also lets us know that this is helpful to you on your journey to better health and stronger bones. And then also, right down in the show notes, you can actually find a link to my free Bone Healthy Recipes Guide. That's going to give you access to some amazing and delicious recipes to support your journey to stronger bones. And then also, we have a link to my free Stronger Bones Masterclass in the show notes too. And that is the 3-step process that has helped people in over 1,500 cities around the world get confident in their plan for stronger bones. Over 110,000 people have taken part in this, and it's been really, really helpful for them. And I want you to have free access to it too. So add your name and email right down there in the show notes, get access to that free Stronger Bones Masterclass, and let's get you confident in your Stronger Bones plan today.
This is probably the most destabilizing experience that women feel in perimenopause, is that mental health shift. I will tell you from personal experience, I got a front row seat to my mom going through perimenopause. And the reason why she reached out to her doctor 15 years ago wasn't because of the weight resistance. It wasn't because of the crime scene periods. It wasn't because of the hot flashes or night sweats. It was because of the rage. Because there were days out of the month where she was afraid to leave her house because she thought she was going to run somebody over with her car. And she actually went to her doctor and she was like, is it normal for you to want to kill people 5 days out of the month? And her doctor was like, yes. And luckily that doctor, this was, in the wake of the Women's Health Initiative back in 2010, that doctor put her on oral micronized progesterone. But unfortunately, her doctor went on maternity leave. And the next doctor who took over her care was like, this isn't indicated. Even though oral micronized progesterone is FDA approved, it's efficacious, it's safe. My mom was doing amazing on it. She could leave the house for those 5 days out of the month. She felt really good. But because that doctor didn't believe in it, pulled her off of those and recommended an SSRI instead. 66 million women are on SSRIs today, especially in the midlife transition. And not to say that there isn't a time and place for that, but when we know that the brain is undergoing a massive remodel due to the decline of these mission critical brain hormones, we have to wonder, is there a better path through? So I always think it's worth having a conversation about hormone replacement therapy with your provider, especially if you're in perimenopause and these symptoms are cyclical, right? Also, lifestyle medicine. I will tell you, I have walked my way out of rage moments more times than I can count. People always joke when I've been on interviews, like, what is the panacea for everything? It's walking. You want to balance your blood sugar, walk after a meal. You want to regulate your nervous system, go for a walk. You want to get more mental energy, sleep deeper, walking. And so I talk a lot about movement in terms of mental health. I always say take an emotional lap, But the number one thing I will tell you for women is, one, become aware. So often, the default mode for a lot of women, but particularly in perimenopause and menopause, is just feeling overwhelmed and stressed. And so much so that we don't even notice it. It just becomes our new normal. That's what's so insidious about stress and chronic stress in particular. Not only that, but it co-elevates insulin, it co-elevates other stress hormones, it co-elevates inflammation and oxidative stress, even belly fat. And so that's one of those kind of insidious changes that we see with chronic stress. But then I always say that the way you'll notice is your body will shift before your brain does. So if you notice everything's getting tight, you're getting contracted, You're noticing that your brain is rapidly firing more so reactively. Take a moment and just let's create a state shift. One of the best ways we can do that is to bring on that prefrontal cortex. So I always say, name 5 things that are real and tangible in the room. So, oh, there's a chair, there's a light, that's a window, there's books. Get the prefrontal cortex back online. And then I love the 4-7-8 breath. Now, if breathing doesn't work for you, it's 4 seconds inhale, 7 seconds hold, and 8 seconds exhale. Do that 3 to 5 times. You will begin to feel so much different, so different. You will feel your nervous system get back into a state of parasympathetic. But if that doesn't work and you're like, I'm feeling ragey right now, shake it out, dance it out, jump it out, walk it out, move your body. Your body's trying to clear that cortisol, right? Act like a gazelle for a second, like run from it, in a way, because that's really what the body's looking for. And then the other thing I recommend is reach out to a friend. Reach out to a bestie, a friend, maybe one of your kids, give them a hug, get that oxytocin boost. Oxytocin will trump cortisol any day of the week, or even any of the mood stuff that's coming up. And then the other thing I always tell people, particularly around stress and anxiousness and overwhelm and irritability being the most common symptom of perimenopause, is send safety signals to the brain. So I always say front load the brain with morning routines and evening routines. When we continuously tell the brain that everything is okay through our habits, through our gratitude practice, through our breath practice, through movement, through connecting with family and friends, the brain is like, okay, nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong. I'm okay. And those are some of my favorite strategies. I also go through this in much more detail in the book.
Those are phenomenal. Thanks so much for sharing those. Let's talk about your book. Let's
Yes.
talk about the Perimenopause Revolution, the ultimate resource for women ready to take charge of their health and embrace perimenopause with resilience and confidence in a 5-week reset program. Let's talk about this amazing book that is, by the time everybody hears this, it's already going to be out. So
yes, it's available on Audible. If you're an Audible girly like me, get the book on Audible, or if you love a hard copy, get it, but it comes in all formats. So the book is doing 4 things. Number one, it is the question I get the most is this perimenopause? Am I in what's happening to me right now? And so that the first part of the book is going to get you the answer that you deserve. Know if you're in perimenopause. And also it's going to help you to connect the dots between your symptoms and your future health outcomes. There's a myth that this zone of chaos is temporary, but a lot of the silent shifts that are happening are not. The bone loss, that's not temporary. The muscle loss isn't temporary. The brain remodeling, that's not necessarily temporary either. The insulin resistance, like we have to listen to our body. We got to attune to the signals of our body and address them. And so the book really connects the dots between, this hair loss or my skin changes or the UTIs. This is connected to the hormone changes, and this is what you can do about it. Next, there are pillars that we went into today, whether it's mental health, HRT, community, balancing your blood sugar, creating metabolically healthy meals, optimizing circadian rhythm, movement. Believe me, I meet you where you're at, whether we're starting with non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or we are lifting weights and sprinting. I got you. Okay. I'm going to meet you where you're at. So those are all the pillars. And then a 5-week plan that starts with mindset, because I always want women to know that they get to decide who they want to become in the second half of their lives. We get to stand on our accomplishments and our hard-won lessons, and we get to prioritize ourselves in a way that is meaningful so that we step into the most vibrant years of our lives. And then the 5-week plan has all the recipes, the meal plan, the workout videos, beginner and intermediate exercise snack videos. I mean, everything you need, sleep trackers, symptom trackers, lab guides, everything, so that you are creating wins out the gate. And all of those things are also in the bonuses. So you're going to get the book, you're going to get the bonuses, you're going to get everything you need to feel more amazing in your body than you have felt in years.
That's fantastic. So where can people find the book and where can people find you? And we'll link to these in the show notes as well.
Get the book wherever you love to get books. If you love Audible, get them on Audible. If you love Amazon, get it on Amazon. Barnes & Noble, walk into a bookstore. You can also go to, if you want the bonuses, which I highly recommend, get the sexy bonuses. There's a lot more recipes, a lot more goodies. That is Dr. Mariza, DrMariza.com /book. And everything's in there. Just put your name and your email. you are good to go. I'm going to send, you will instantly get all the bonuses, including my 2-hour masterclass delivered so that you can get started today. Because I don't know about you, Kevin, when I am ready, I am ready. Like now is the new later. So I want all the things. I want all the goodies. I want everything to set myself up for success. And let me tell you, I built this with you in mind. I built this with me in mind. Like, what would I love as a busy working mom? And that's how all the bonuses are curated.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing that and your knowledge and expertise. And for everybody listening, be sure to share this. If you're listening to this and you've got a daughter or a daughter-in-law or someone in your life that you think this would be relevant for, share this with them. Share the resources in the show notes. Share Mariza's book, The Perimenopause Revolution, with everybody. And I'm going to link to all that in the show notes as well. So I want to thank you again so much for your time. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, it's BoneCoach Kevin Ellis. Hope you found that episode helpful and that you enjoyed it. Just one last reminder, if you haven't done so already, head over to bonecoach.com, sign up for your free 7-day osteoporosis kickstart. It's going to tell you everything you need to do to start getting on the path to improvement. Hope you found this helpful. I'm your BoneCoach Kevin Ellis. I'll see you soon.